My best friend instigated me to confess my love to my childhood sweetheart at the class reunion, but in fact they had already been together for a long time. She just wanted to embarrass me in public. As a result, I confessed my love to the school bully who had secretly liked me but never said it out loud. In my previous life, the school bully surprised that I, the school beauty, have been reincarnated. While waiting for the elevator in the KTV with delight, some boys kept looking at us. That's Amelia, the school beauty, right? She's even more beautiful in person than in the pictures. This is what a fairy looks like. I've always dreamed of having a girlfriend like her. I really want to ask for her contact information, but she's so good-looking that I don't dare to. Chloe stood beside me expressionlessly, but her fists hidden in her sleeves were clenched tightly. I suddenly realized that she must have been dissatisfied with me for a long time. Right until a familiar figure came into sight, Chloe shouted happily, "Ryan! Over here! Coming!" Ryan quickened his pace with a smile. When he walked up to me, I quietly took 2 steps back. I didn't even look at him. Ryan's steps paused slightly. In the past, I would have taken the initiative to go up to him without waiting for him to speak, even though he had always shown obvious impatience toward me. "Ryan, Amelia has something to tell you tonight, isn't that right, Amelia?" Chloe nudged me with her elbow, signaling me to speak. But I directly pushed her hand away. "I know, Ryan." I turned my head to look in the other direction. 3 boys were walking over there. "Ethan's here tonight too. Ethan, your new sports car is so cool. When can you lend it to me for a drive?" Ethan just woke up and doesn't want to talk. He didn't originally want to come. I don't know what news he received. Heh. My eyes then fell on the young man called Ethan. He looked as if he had just woken up, his black hair scattered on his forehead, his eyes half closed. He had one hand in his pocket and was idly twirling a car key in the other hand. It was only when his eyes met mine that his body stiffened for a moment. Then he slowly raised his eyes, but only looked at me for a second before looking away. "Ethan, good evening." I took the initiative to speak. Everyone around was a bit surprised. Ethan, the school bully, and Amelia, the school beauty, seemingly had never interacted with each other before, right? Could it be that they knew each other? Ethan was also stunned for a moment and then said slowly in a low voice, "Yeah. Good evening." The 2 boys beside him exchanged meaningful glances and then turned their heads aside, secretly laughing. "Amelia." Ryan looked at me with that impatient look again in a tone that took it for granted. "When did you and Ethan get to know each other?" As before, it had a sense of trying to discipline me. But this time I wouldn't go along with him anymore. I rolled my eyes and said, "What's it to you?" Ryan pursed his lips and looked at me, his eyes dark. "Amelia, how can you talk like that?" Chloe was the first to stand up to defend Ryan. "Ryan is just thinking of you. He doesn't want you to associate with that kind of person. Why are you so rude?" "What kind of person?" I stared at her and said, "Is it someone who acts one way in front of others and another way behind their backs? Or someone who's full of lies, hypocritical and shameless? Don't misunderstand, I'm talking about you." Ryan and I were childhood sweethearts. After becoming best friends with Chloe, I naturally introduced him to her. And Chloe knew clearly that I had a crush on Ryan. But while secretly flirting with him, she kept persuading me to pursue him. Even though I had felt Ryan's inexplicable alienation and annoyance toward me, I had never thought that it was the doing of my so-called good best friend. Chloe didn't expect that I would speak up to defend Ethan. She hurriedly came to pull my arm, trying to pull me aside and tell me not to forget to confess my love to Ryan. However, I directly pulled my arm out of her hand. Chloe pulled too hard and was caught off guard, almost falling. Ryan immediately held her with a distressed look. This time, the way he looked at me seemed as if he wanted to tear me apart. "Amelia, what are you doing?" "Apologize to Chloe." His voice was really stern, and it was so loud that people around couldn't help but look over. He glared at me fiercely and walked towards me step by step. I was forced to step back gradually, but in the next second, my back hit a hard chest and there was a nice sandalwood fragrance on him. I instinctively turned around and my forehead touched the tip of the young man's nose. The young man held my arm and turned me to face Ryan. His palm was broad and warm. Ethan said in a light tone, word by word. Such a fierce voice, just like my dog at home. He was standing up for me. I remembered that at this time in my previous life I was so angry with Ryan that I cried and secretly turned my head away to wipe my tears. Ethan was chatting casually with his buddies not far away at that time, but his eyes had been on me all along. His brows were tightly furrowed. His hand was pressed firmly against the wall, the veins on his hand bulging. At the end of that night, I was rejected and humiliated by Ryan and ran back to the dormitory crying. The next day I heard from my classmates that Ryan had been beaten up last night, so badly that he was directly hospitalized. Now that I think about it, it must have been this young master who did it. Brother, don't say that. Your Tibetan Mastiff at home is much more energetic than this guy, I can testify. Moreover, it's also much more valuable than him. Ethan's little followers swaggered over quickly, attracting the attention of people around. The elevator door had opened, but no one dared to go in. What do you want to fight? Ryan said coldly. No, Ethan corrected. Fighting involves two sides. But I can crush you unilaterally. I believe Ethan wasn't just bluffing. In view of this, I politely stepped aside. Ethan, please. Ryan, all right, we're all classmates. It's all a misunderstanding, all a misunderstanding. Chloe was scared. She quickly pushed Ryan toward the stairwell. She still didn't forget to give me a look that said, Amelia, don't be so petty. Don't forget the purpose of our coming here tonight. I really wanted to slap her. In my previous life, instigated by Chloe, I confessed my love to Ryan and was rejected in public. He held Chloe's hand and announced their relationship, and I was then labeled as a mistress overnight. I fell from being the school beauty envied by everyone to a laughingstock and an object of ridicule. Later I suffered from depression and dropped out of school. During my illness, I often received and signed letters of encouragement. The handwriting was very neat with just a few simple words. Come on. There will always be someone there for you. Each letter was accompanied by a blue balloon flower. It wasn't until I died in a car accident by accident that I found out those letters and flowers were all sent by Ethan, the young man whom I had never paid attention to before and who would blush every time he saw me. Thinking of all the things in my previous life, my emotions surged and my shoulders trembled slightly. Ethan seemed to sense my strangeness. He hesitated and called my name softly. Amelia. It sounded like a very ordinary tone, but I heard a tenderness that I had never heard before. Yeah. I came back to my senses. The elevator is here. I nodded and immediately walked toward the elevator. Watch out. I didn't notice that the elevator door was closing. Ethan quickly stepped forward and reached out to block it for me while someone beside us exclaimed exaggeratedly. I bumped into the young man's arms. At this moment I could hear my heart beating very fast. The young man's hand was still pressing on the door frame. He was sideways to me with his brows slightly furrowed, his nose bridge high and straight, and his lips a bright red. I couldn't help but sigh. How could someone who played football on the playground every day and fought in all kinds of weather still be so fair-skinned and have such tender skin? With my thoughts flying around like this, I arrived at the top floor hall. The classmates who had arrived early had turned the music up really loud, but when they saw Ethan's livid face, they all quietly turned the volume down. Actually, I didn't think Ethan was in a bad mood. He just looked scary even when he had no expression on his face. Amelia, come over here. Chloe beckoned me to sit with them. Ryan was also staring straight at me. In the past, as long as he looked at me, I would definitely walk toward him. But things were different now. I sat wherever Ethan and his little followers sat. Those two followers were a bit flattered. What day is it today? The school beauty is actually sitting with us. The guys over there are going to be so jealous of us. Ethan twitched the corner of his mouth. He held back a laugh and slapped the boy on the head. There's a girl here, don't swear. Suddenly I thought that this bad student, famous throughout the school, was quite cute. We sat in small groups like this. During this time Chloe gave me many looks, but I just pretended not to see them. Finally she couldn't hold it in anymore. Amelia, didn't you say you had something to tell Ryan tonight? She raised her voice by an octave, attracting the attention of the other classmates. Amelia, don't leave any regrets. All the words you've kept hidden in your heart for so many years and wanted to say to Ryan, just say them out tonight. I also want to know. The amount of information in these words was really quite a lot. The classmates around started gossiping and discussing. I smiled and nodded. Hey, I do have something I want to say in front of our classmates tonight. I didn't miss the extremely excited and jealous look in Chloe's eyes. Amelia, go ahead and say it. She couldn't hold back her excitement anymore and her voice was trembling. Ryan was looking at me coldly with a look of annoyance on his face. In the silent air I stood up, walked up to Ethan and said loudly, "Ethan, I've liked you for a long time. Be my boyfriend." There was an uproar in the whole place. The whole venue was like it had been hit by a depth charge and immediately boiled over. Damn it. Ethan's little follower was so shocked that he bumped into him. The boy seemed to be petrified on the spot. A blush quickly climbed from his earlobes to his extremely fair face. He stared at me, his Adam's apple bobbed and there was a glimmer in his dark eyes. "Are you serious?" he said in a hoarse voice. "Of course." I smiled gently. "What?" Chloe screamed. She couldn't care less about pretending and rushed up to me. "Amelia, why are you confessing your love to Ethan? Weren't you supposed to confess your love to Ryan?" Seeing that Ethan's eyes dimmed a little, I turned around and saw that Ryan had also stood up from the sofa, his face terribly dark. I chuckled and said, "Why should I confess my love to him? He's not my type at all." "Amelia." I had never seen Ryan with such a look in his eyes. There was shock, astonishment, pain, disbelief. All kinds of complicated emotions flashing by one by one. He walked over. "Ryan, what are you going to do?" Chloe grabbed Ryan's hand almost instinctively. I smiled and said, "Chloe, I should really thank you for constantly persuading me to like him. But isn't he your boyfriend? Right, Ryan?" I looked at Ryan and he responded to my words in an acquiescent way. "No, Chloe was both shocked and anxious and wanted to defend herself, but at this moment everyone already had their own judgment in mind, especially the girls who could immediately understand what was going on. Tonight, the monitor of our class, who had always been outspoken, directly said, "It's so disgusting. She's always plotting against her best friend. This kind of person just pretends to be an innocent, scheming girl in front of men." Chloe's face flushed red all of a sudden, but to my surprise Ryan didn't seem to have any reaction to this. Suddenly I felt that he wasn't unaware of everything. He had just been acquiescing in Chloe's bullying and slandering of me all along. "Amelia, are you joking with yourself just to make me angry?" Ryan said in a calm tone. I was impressed by his self-confidence. I stared at him and said, "Ryan, you've always been trampling on my friendship, yet you expect me to heal my wounds and come back to you. Where does your confidence come from, that you can keep hurting me like this? Do you think I really can't live without you?" He fell silent. Ethan, who had just stood there like a stone, reacted and stepped in front of me. The young man's earlobes were as red as ripe cherries. "Whether she's joking or not, anyway, she has nothing to do with you now." "But I was serious in the first place," I said, blinking my eyes innocently. The next second I pulled Ethan by the shoulder, turned him toward me and directly kissed him. Ethan's eyes widened. The classmates froze and in the next second they shouted themselves hoarse. "Oh my God. Is this something I can watch for free? Help. This damn compatibility. Pie goddess." Suddenly I realized that only Ethan could match the beauty of the school belle. And the person I was kissing even stopped breathing. There was a shallow scar at the corner of his eye, now covered by the shadow cast by his long eyelashes. Ethan looked at me in shock, his long eyelashes not blinking at all. However, this aroused my interest even more. Did this guy know that his eyes were really beautiful? I was like teasing an innocent young man. I deliberately rubbed his lips and said softly, "Ethan, why are you so easy to blush? Don't you even know how to kiss your girlfriend?" His face became even redder. The young man reached out, cued the back of my head and deepened the kiss forcefully. In 2 lifetimes this was my first kiss. I didn't expect that I would be so proactive. It seemed that I was just carried away by the moment. When I saw him I just wanted to kiss him. Is this what it feels like to start a proper relationship? It seemed quite sweet. Gradually I closed my eyes. That night I was dizzy all the time and my last memory was that Ethan sent me back to the dormitory. As for Ryan and Chloe, I didn't pay any attention to them at all. I blocked them both as soon as I got back. The friendship among 3 people is too crowded. You don't need to deliberately push me out. I'll leave on my own. As soon as I got back to the dormitory, Chloe came to knock on my door, saying that I had misunderstood and she wanted to explain. She said she didn't have any other thoughts about Ryan. She emphasized her tone and asked, "Amelia, do you really not like Ryan anymore? Didn't you say that you liked him because he was handsome and mature, and that you two grew up together as childhood sweethearts?" I understood that Chloe couldn't accept that the only thing she had won over me had already been abandoned by me. Her feelings for Ryan might not be love, but just a mentality of competing with me. Amelia, could you please come out and meet me? Chloe persisted in standing outside the door and knocking until my roommate came back and drove her away. My eyes had been fixed on the screen of my mobile phone, and the corners of my mouth couldn't help curling up slightly. Ethan had just added my contact information tonight. He asked dizzily, "Are we really together?" "I'm very innocent, don't lie to me." I burst out laughing. I found 2 couple avatars and sent them to him. Ethan changed them very quickly. He said, "I'm still a bit excited." I said with a smile, "Don't be excited. Let's go to class together tomorrow." "Good night, my boyfriend." "Hey." "Good night, my girlfriend." Later, I heard from his roommate that he was far more than a bit excited that night. He almost tore his dormitory apart. He ran to the corridor and shouted, "Amelia is my girlfriend," until the early hours of the morning. No one dared to stop him. In the end, he stopped when he shouted himself hoarse. Then he went to take a cold shower in the bathroom. Finding that he still couldn't control his excitement, he went to run laps on the playground. That night, I put down my mobile phone and lay on the bed but still couldn't fall asleep for a long time. In my previous life, during the period when I suspended my studies, I basically spent my time taking medicine and seeing doctors. I was no longer the object of envy in others' mouths. But once I was excellent in studies, good at singing and dancing, recognized as an all-round school beauty in the eyes of my classmates, and also a role model for my junior schoolmates. After I fell from the altar, it seemed that everyone had forgotten me except him. Ethan would never abandon Amelia because of him. Slowly, no one dared to gossip about me behind my back anymore. Even in the new school beauty selection competition, Ethan voted for me with his real name. On the day of the school voting election, I was sitting by the windowsill at home, thinking for the 10th time whether to jump down or not. Mom rushed into my room with her mobile phone in her hand, trembling, and said, "Daughter, look quickly. Your classmates haven't all forgotten you." She showed me a live video, a male classmate voting for me. In the huge voting venue, Ethan was wearing a black suit that he rarely wore. He looked solemn and out of place, walking alone to the stage in front of everyone's eyes. He seemed not to care about anyone present. He, who had always been careless about everything, put the sign with the 2 big words Amelia on the table extremely solemnly. The only lonely vote was more eye-catching than anyone else's name. At that moment, the sunlight was shining brightly. The young man looked at the sign in his hand and smiled. "Frankly speaking, this school beauty election is completely unnecessary. The gap is too big." The host was a bit at a loss for this unexpected situation. On the spot, he hesitated and asked Ethan, "Are you sure?" "Of course I'm sure." The young man slightly raised his eyes to look at the camera and said with a confident smile, "If it's Ethan falling for someone, I will choose her again and again, 1,000 times, 10,000 times until I die." I stared blankly at the screen and suddenly remembered the person who wrote anonymous letters to encourage me. On one of the letters on the front was drawn a girl leading a dog that looked rather funny. The dog was wearing black clothes and had a scar under its eye. On the back was written, "The dog will never abandon you. The dog will always be passionate and loyal to you." Remembering the funny look of the dog in that picture, I couldn't help laughing. It seemed to be the first time I laughed after falling ill. Mom looked at me in shock and excitement as I finally showed the emotions that a normal person should have. She stood there at a loss. After a while, she came over crying and hugged me. "Now that I've been reborn, I will never let down anyone who likes me again. I will never let others destroy me easily either." The next morning, Ethan and I walked hand in hand on the campus, and people passing by couldn't help but look at us twice. Ethan usually had his bangs combed up stubbornly and unrestrainedly, but today they hung down naturally, which, combined with his big black eyes, gave him a strangely cute look. Suddenly I really wanted to kiss him. Just then we passed by a child eating candied haw. The child had big eyes that were especially lively and cute. I was immediately captivated. I shyly pointed at the child and said to Ethan, "Look, I want one like that too. I also want to have a child like that with you." I thought that the combination of Ethan's and my genes must be good. It would be best to have a boy and a girl. The son would take after him and the daughter would take after me. Ethan nodded as if he suddenly understood. "I got it. I promise that you'll have what others have." He looked around and then let go of my hand and ran to one side. What are you doing? I was stunned. The young man quickened his pace without looking back. Wait for me. I'll bring you candied haws right away. Ethan, could you be any more straightforward? I simply sat on the bench by the roadside and played with my mobile phone while waiting for him. I was playing the game Candy Crush with great enthusiasm when a pair of footsteps, neither too light nor too heavy, stopped in front of me. Ethan, is that you? The smile on my face disappeared in an instant. Ryan, unusually calm, smiled at me. He was holding a steaming and fragrant bag of small steamed buns in his hand. You haven't eaten at this time yet, right? Here, your favorite, Nanong small steamed buns. He handed the bag to me, but I raised my hand and knocked it over. Ryan, do you know I died once before, in both body and spirit? What I can't allow myself to do is repeat the same mistakes. Sorry. My boyfriend will take me to eat soon. After a pause, thinking that I couldn't let him casually touch me, I bent down to pick up the bag and neatly threw it into the trash can. Ryan, however, smiled and watched all this from beginning to end. Amelia, you've always been such a proud girl. I replied rudely, you've always been so crazy. After saying that, I was about to leave, but Ryan suddenly raised his voice. Have you ever seen Ethan drink and fight with others with his buddies? Have you ever seen him play dice and drink in a bar? Do you know there are many girls around Ethan, that he might just be playing with you? I turned my head and looked at him expressionlessly. Ryan's voice became a bit steadier. He said, you've never had any contact with Ethan before, Amelia. Do you really like him? A person like him, who's not decent, is he worthy of you? The rest of his words were cut off. I withdrew my hand and Ryan reached out in disbelief, touching the side of his face that I had just slapped. You hit me for him? Yes. I stared at him fiercely and smiled. You cursed my boyfriend as not decent. Why didn't I beat you to death? There was nothing but shock and strangeness in Ryan's eyes. Yeah, I used to be extremely gentle and mild-tempered. I wouldn't even fight with others, wouldn't even say harsh words. Whenever I shed tears because of Ryan, he would disdainfully say that I was just like a flower in a greenhouse, spoiled by my family, and that I could be made to cry by the slightest thing. He told me to go find those boys who would spoil and pamper me, because he definitely wouldn't. Actually, most of the time when I cried back then, it was because I was sad that he would never stand by my side. Ryan. A scream came. Chloe didn't know where she had been hiding just now, but at this moment she rushed out and anxiously held Ryan's face to check. Are you hurt? Is it serious? Amelia, you've gone too far. How could you do this to Ryan? She kept babbling on, but Ryan kept looking straight at me. Suddenly, he interrupted her words. Amelia, you've changed. Thanks for the affirmation. I took out a tissue from my pocket, wiped my hands vigorously and threw it into the trash can. Ryan, let's go. Chloe's expression darkened a bit. She pulled Ryan's arm and dragged him away forcefully. Ryan followed her and left, but he still turned his head toward me after walking a few steps. He stopped. There were still complex emotions in his eyes. Facing their gazes, I turned around expressionlessly. Under the camphor tree in front, there was a tall and slender figure standing. The young man was holding a candied haw on a stick in his hand. He smiled at me with his eyes narrowed in the faint light of the morning sun. My eyes suddenly lit up. Ethan. I smiled and rushed toward him. He opened his arms and caught me. I hugged his slender waist tightly and secretly thought that it felt really nice to hug him. His arms were long and could wrap around me completely. Amelia. Ethan's voice fell on top of my head, gentle and soft. Actually, you don't have to stand up for me. I never care about what those people say. I know. But I just won't allow anyone to say anything bad about my boyfriend. I whispered and hugged him even tighter. Just like the countless times in the past when I watched Ryan and Chloe leave together, this time I generously held Ethan's hand in front of them, hugged his arm like a human pendant, and let him feed me the candied haw while we walked toward the cafeteria. It's just showing off our affection. When you meet the person you like, you'll naturally know how to do it without being taught. While having a meal, I heard the girls at the neighboring table chatting. I didn't expect that Ethan could smile, and he looks quite good when he smiles. The girl opposite her immediately added, "Oh, he's already taken. He and Amelia, the campus belle, are really sweet together." Ethan's computer science department didn't have classes in the morning, so he came to class with me. This was a small class and there weren't many people in the classroom. Everyone became much more awake because of Ethan's arrival. But what caused an even bigger stir was that Sophie, another female school bully who used to hang out with Ethan a lot, also came. Sophie had taken a leave of absence from school some time ago, and everyone thought she wouldn't show up again soon. Recently, Sophie had dyed her hair black and let down her always tied-up high ponytail for the first time, which made her already slender chin look even more delicate. She was wearing a white Chanel-style suit today. The top was open, revealing the sexy strapless top inside, making the boys beside her blush and dare not look directly. Suddenly I remembered that Sophie had also been elected as the department flower of the computer science department. It's just that later she liked to pretend to be a tomboy and play with Ethan and the others. Seeing Ethan and me walking in, Sophie simply said, Jake is also coming to class. Ethan didn't even look at her and just took my hand and sat down at the back. Sophie laughed and still turned her head with a smile and said, "Is it necessary? I just failed to confess my love to you. Do you have to avoid me like this? Even if we can't be lovers, we can still be friends just like before. Can I continue to be your little follower?" Ethan snorted coldly through his nose and silently took a piece of paper to wipe the table for me. Sophie was still talking and this time her gaze turned to me. "Jake, I just realized that you like someone like her. But what's the difference between me and her now? Why can't you even look at me?" Finally, Ethan couldn't bear it anymore and opened his mouth. He gritted his teeth and threatened Sophie, "I don't want to be harsh to girls. Behave yourself." "Fine." Sophie giggled and then went to flip through the comic books spread out on the table. Actually, whether you love someone or not is really obvious. If I'm not mistaken, the comic book Sophie was reading was in the style that Ethan liked. At this moment Ethan was frowning as he flipped through my advanced mathematics textbook, pretending to be thinking seriously. "Do you know how to do this problem?" I deliberately leaned over to tease him. Ethan glanced at me and his cheeks immediately turned red. He nodded and then shook his head. "Then I'll explain it to you." I blinked at him and Ethan's face became even redder. He was so cute. I held back my laughter and used a pen to calculate and show him. After I seriously finished explaining the problem and raised my eyes, I found that the young man was hurriedly looking away. "Ethan," I pretended to be strict and said, "were you looking at the textbook or at me just now?" He looked at me then lowered his eyes like a puppy that had made a mistake. "Looking at you. Ethan, if you keep staring at me like this, the teacher will scold you." His eyelids twitched and he said nonchalantly, "I'd still rather look at you." That picture appeared in my mind again. The girl walking in front with the puppy on a leash, the puppy staring at the girl's back all the time. "Ethan, this time I won't let you down again." After this class ended, Ethan was called out by a boy who said he had something to talk about. As soon as he left, Sophie came and sat down. She didn't say a word but just propped her head up and carefully examined me. I closed the textbook without changing my expression. "You've been looking at me during class, haven't you seen enough yet?" The girl said with a smile, "Amelia, he seems to really like you. Although everyone says you're the campus belle, I'm still surprised that he chose you. It's not that you're not good enough. It's just that Ethan is the best in my eyes." I looked into her eyes. They were a pair of very beautiful phoenix eyes, without envy or resentment in them but with a sincere admiration from the bottom of her heart, like a kind of tacit understanding among girls. I could feel that she didn't have any ill will toward me. I nodded and said, "I understand how you feel. I'll take good care of him." Sophie picked up a strand of my hair, laughed and said, "Do you know, when I first met him I had the same hairstyle as you. I also liked to let my hair down. Back then the first time I met Ethan was when I was blocked by a group of hooligans. None of the passers-by stopped to help me, only he did. He rode his motorcycle straight towards them and blocked in front of me." When talking about Ethan, Sophie's eyes lit up, and the curve of her raised lips became more obvious. I still remember his cold side profile in the night. He was arrogant and unruly, his eyes were wild yet extremely clean, which was fatally attractive to people. He looked at those hooligans and calmly said, "Get on the bike." That was the first time I rode on his motorcycle. Later, I wanted to follow him all the time, so I simply tied up my hair and followed him everywhere like a brother. At first he didn't let me follow him. Later I fought with others several times desperately just to follow him and got into trouble with others. Then he had no choice but to let me follow him. Sophie's smile took on a bit of bitterness. I used to think that as long as I could stay by his side all the time I would have a chance. I was wrong. Amelia, for the first time I lost to someone, and that person is you. Your appearance made me a complete loser. I looked at Sophie sympathetically and reached out to put my hand on her shoulder. Just as I was about to say some comforting words, Chloe rushed in from somewhere. She should have already heard a lot of rumors in the college. Now she didn't look in a good mental state at all. Amelia, I was indeed with Ryan before. It's my fault, I shouldn't have hidden it from you, but it was all his idea. Actually, I agreed to it reluctantly. Sophie raised her head with a strange expression and lifted her eyebrows. Chloe then continued, but now I've broken up with him. Amelia, you'll always be my best girlfriend. To hell with all those men. She forcibly took my hand with tears floating in her eyes. Let's go back to the old days, okay? Can we still be inseparable, good girlfriends like before? Then what do you want? I said with a smile. Chloe thought I was still as easy to deceive as before. She said with a sobbing voice, I knew you wouldn't abandon me. You're the nicest person. Has that Ethan bullied you? If he dares to make you angry, I'll stand up for you. Stop, stop, stop. Sophie crossed her legs and said, I can't stand listening to this anymore. Lady, the young couple is having a great relationship. Do you need to interfere? Who do you think you are? Sophie didn't know Chloe, but Chloe had heard of Sophie's name. She didn't dare to offend this famous big sister. Instinctively, she took 2 steps back and whispered, I'm also doing this for Amelia. I'm speaking from her perspective. If you don't like it, forget it. But she didn't stop talking. I slowly said, Sophie is right. Chloe, who do you think you are? I pronounced each word clearly. If I remember correctly, when I had a decent relationship with Ryan before, it was you who kept shouting that you wouldn't let me be bullied and that you would stand up for me and settle scores with him. But in the end you two got together and I became the outsider instead. Now do you want to use the same old trick and target Ethan? Sophie suddenly realized and summed it up. Isn't this the so-called green tea plus scheming? She's really mastered the art of stealing her best friend's boyfriend. Chloe had suffered multiple heavy blows from last night to today. Now even Sophie, who didn't know her at all, could expose her true nature incisively. She stamped her foot angrily and ran out of the classroom. I turned around and looked at Sophie. To our surprise, we both laughed at the same time. Maybe we can be friends, I said. Sophie pouted and said, forget it. After all, you're my rival in love. I don't want to see either of you two in the future. Today is my last attempt for myself. Well, I lost, I admit it. When Ethan came back that day, Sophie had already left the classroom, and the comic book that she had been flipping through all morning was already lying quietly in the trash can. The page was turned to the first page and the handwriting on it was clumsy but clear. Ethan, could you please like Sophie? I felt like I was living in a honeypot every day after that. Ethan doted on me to the sky. He obeyed me in everything and was so enchanted that he sent me lots of gifts every day, eager to give me all the things he thought were good. The arrogant and overbearing air that he used to have seemed to disappear completely overnight. Not only did his hairstyle and dressing style become like those of a good student, but he also smiled more often. He was always proudly showing off to his buddies that he had a girlfriend. He talked a lot more, and those who knew him before could hardly recognize him. Only later did I realize that he hadn't changed his impulsive and adventurous nature. He had just restrained all his edges for me. Ethan even wanted to give me the key to his favorite sports car, but I firmly refused, because I had already received the best gift from him long ago. It was those letters when I was the loneliest and most helpless, and those beautiful yet lonely blue balloon flowers. In sharp contrast to this were Ryan and Chloe. Chloe had a very bad reputation. She almost received the same treatment that I had endured in my previous life. And Ryan was obviously much quieter, giving off an air of depression all over. Many times when Ethan and I went shopping hand in hand, we would run into him coincidentally somewhere. Although we didn't greet each other, after passing by I could strongly feel a very intense gaze fixed on me. Time flew by and soon it was Christmas Eve, and in my previous life I died on that day. This year's Christmas Eve was accompanied by a thick layer of snow. The moonlight was bright and the ground was white. My lips were chafed for some reason. I was so angry that I ignored him for half a day and didn't agree to go out and play with him until evening. Ethan prepared a big Christmas box for me following what he saw online. Besides apples, there were stacks of red R&B in it. I was amazed at his extravagance and also had no way to do anything about his straightforward way of expressing love. The pedestrian street was lively with many couples. The girls' faces were flushed, their hands held by the boys and tucked into their coat pockets. Only the straight guy Ethan, with his zipper open as if he wasn't afraid of the cold, held my hand and put it into his arms. "Aren't you cold?" I asked him. Ethan smiled foolishly and said, "No. I'm actually quite warm." During this period of time, I almost forgot that my boyfriend used to be a school bully feared by everyone. Every day he had a silly yet happy look. He would also feed stray cats and dogs and had become patient with everything. Just as we were walking along the street, there was suddenly a commotion in the crowd. For some reason, the moment I heard the noise from that side, I suddenly had a violent palpitation. A fear originating from the bottom of my bones surrounded me. I shook my head hard to make myself sober up. It turned out that a drunk man had fallen on a girl. The girl's boyfriend was so furious that he was about to teach the man a lesson, but the man's companions immediately came over. The girl quickly said, "It's a misunderstanding, it's a misunderstanding," and hurriedly pulled the boy away. "Damn it, two idiots." The drunk man with the smell of alcohol stood up and clapped his hands. He was speaking clearly. Forget it, there are plenty of schoolgirls like this. Come on, brother will take you to that bar to have fun. Let's drive there." Ethan stopped in his tracks and looked over. His eyes were pitch black and thin bloodshot veins slowly appeared in his eyeballs. "Amelia, wait a moment. I'll go buy you a chocolate milk tea." He earnestly told me, "There are policemen on duty over there. You just sit here and wait for me. Don't go anywhere, okay? I'll be back as soon as possible." I felt that something was wrong, but I still agreed. Not long after Ethan left, I saw the person I hated the most. Ryan. Ryan, who usually wore white or light blue shirts, was wearing black clothes tonight. He was still standing a few steps away looking at me without saying a word. But since I had promised Ethan to wait for him here, I wouldn't leave easily. I changed my sitting position and casually crossed my legs. According to Ryan's words, I could never like a girl who behaves eccentrically and shows off her sharp edges. How ridiculous. In the past, because Ryan liked wearing light blue shirts, I bought many long blue dresses. Sophie, who liked Ethan, would tie up or let down her hair because of him. Ethan changed himself into a well-behaved good student for me. Now Ryan put on black clothes that he used to dislike the most. For me, everyone changes themselves because of the person they like. But they don't know that love itself is something that breaks all the rules. There will always be someone whose appearance will break through all your expectations. He may not be perfect, but the moment he appears, there will be a voice in your heart saying, "It's him." "Amelia, can't we go back to the past?" Ryan suddenly spoke. The past? Was it the past without Chloe? I remembered that in junior high school and high school, Ryan always rode a bicycle to take me to and from school. He seldom talked all the way. I was chattering while he listened. When I said something funny, he didn't move a muscle. Perhaps only the wind knew whether he laughed or not. At that time, because I had always been highly sought after in school, he said that he hated the feeling of being talked about when walking with me. So he made an agreement with me that we were not allowed to show that we knew each other on campus. And after Chloe came into the picture, he would only bring 1 cup of milk tea when she and I were waiting for him. It was strawberry flavored. Strawberry milk tea was Chloe's favorite. But he forgot that I also liked milk tea and my favorite was chocolate flavored. "Ryan, what do you think?" I said in a deep voice. "Is it necessary to go back to the past with me? The Chloe you like has eyes only for you. She's faking it. I can tell." Ryan finally admitted. I couldn't help but sneer. Was it fun to let her torture me? Ryan's eyes flickered slightly. "Amelia, I just wanted you to restrain your sharp edges a bit. You were too dazzling. I always felt that you wouldn't stay by my side forever. But I'm sorry." This was the first time in my life that I heard Ryan apologize to someone. Unfortunately, this apology came too late and had no meaning at all. I don't think we have anything more to say. Some people will appreciate roses when they see them, while others worry that the thorns will hurt them, so they choose to use all means to make them wither. Such a selfish person doesn't deserve my forgiveness. Suddenly, an anxious figure came running over. Sophie's face was as pale as paper, and she was so anxious that she was on the verge of crying. "Oh no, Amelia. Ethan got into a fight with others. There were many of them on the other side and they were all drunk. Call the police quickly." When we rushed to the scene, I saw fragments all over the ground in the alley ahead as well as faint blood stains. People were lying all over the place in disarray, and my heart was broken. "Don't go over there." My voice was very low. I had never been so calm yet so crazy at the same time. Ryan and Sophie were scared by my expression. Ryan still insisted on going forward but was stopped sharply by Sophie. "Amelia, you go. If anything goes wrong, call us immediately. The police and the ambulance will be here soon." I nodded. I knew that at this moment Ethan only wanted to see me. I slowly walked forward. Many people were lying on the ground and there were heavy marks of being beaten with sticks on their bodies. I couldn't imagine that my boyfriend, all alone, faced this group of people without any help. But he still won. He wasn't uninjured, he just persisted like crazy until the end. Chloe was also there. She was kneeling on the ground, trembling all over and saying something. Yes, the girl that the drunk man flirted with just now was Chloe. The boy beside her at that time was Ryan. Ryan couldn't give up Chloe's docility and meekness, but he also couldn't let go of me, his childhood sweetheart. How could I not feel sick at the sight of him like this? I was just angry that Ryan left me again to find her. I walked to a place with fewer people in a fit of pique. Coincidentally, I met that group of people at the entrance of the parking lot. I was so scared that I said, "Our school beauty Amelia is very good looking. If you're so capable, go find her." Chloe was trembling violently all over. She knelt on the ground, stammering, and finally couldn't help fainting. The stick in Ethan's hand, who had been half kneeling on the ground and struggling to support himself, loosened, and he also fell down. But the moment he fell, I caught him. "Amelia." I saw liquid falling on his shoulder. Only then did I realize that I was crying. "Why are you crying, Amelia?" The young man's face was a bit pale, but he still smiled happily at me. "Look, I beat them all down by myself." He was like a child waiting for praise. Ethan said weakly, "Amelia, I had a very vivid dream. In the dream it was that bald drunk man who drove into you. I almost went crazy. I remembered his face very clearly, so I couldn't help but follow them when I heard Chloe was going to bring them to find you. Everything I saw in the dream instantly flooded into my mind. I couldn't control my emotions. So fool. I suddenly burst out crying and laughing at the same time. Whether in the previous life or this life, he would always be so desperate to protect me, not allowing anyone to offend me. He had never changed. Ethan put his head on my shoulder and I heard him say softly, "Amelia, unlike in the dream, I can finally protect you by your side." I tried hard to hold back the stinging feeling in my eyes, stretched out my fingers and carefully traced his eyebrows and eyes. I said very softly, "Puppy, I'm here to take you home." The last letter he sent me in my previous life was a long paragraph. The flower language of the balloon flower is eternal love and hopeless love. My love for you is eternal, but I know that perhaps I can't expect you to turn around. You definitely don't know a boy named Ethan. You also definitely don't know that blue was the color you were wearing when I first saw you. That day you were wearing a very fairy-like long blue dress, carrying a school bag and walking on the path under the shade of the trees. The moment I saw you, my whole world became clear and bright. I had never seen such a beautiful girl. I pointed at you and said to my buddies, "Is that the school beauty Amelia? I must win her over." The funny thing is that later I found out I was actually a coward. I only dared to watch you from a distance and didn't dare to approach you at all. The countless moments when we accidentally met and passed by each other were actually rehearsals that I had planned and mustered up the courage to do over and over again. At a certain moment, I suddenly realized that such a dazzling girl belonged to the world, not to Ethan. It was also on that day that I suddenly had a strong urge to see you for the first time. I dragged my weak and powerless body and ran out of the house. Because I was too impatient, I had a car accident when crossing the road and died on the spot. Fortunately, I was reborn as a result of this misfortune. Amelia doesn't belong to this world. Amelia belongs only to Ethan. My dearest puppy, please believe that this time, I will never let go of your hand. I sat still, tears silently rolling down my cheeks. In this life he had really kept his promise. He had stood in front of me every time danger approached. He had loved me recklessly, wholly, foolishly, without asking for anything in return. And now I finally understood that sometimes love doesn't roar, it simply stays. It stands there quietly fighting the world for you. I held Ethan's hand tightly as the ambulance sirens grew louder in the distance. echoing under the cold, starless night. This time I wasn't going to lose him again. Look, when people talk about first loves, they always speak of fire and butterflies. But what they never tell you is that real love is quieter. Like the warmth of a hand that never lets go, like the shadow that follows you even in darkness. Amelia and Ethan didn't need perfection. They just needed time. And this time they had it.